the first message that's given normally ties in with what we have prepared to share with others. Just like I was preparing a message that has to do with reading between the lines of the Bible. As we read the Bible, we try to get the message that's behind what we are reading. Just ended up tying in with what Tatenda just gave us. So I'm going to ask us to give attention to the fact that God created us in His image. And I'm going to be talking about what we experience every day in everyday life, but I'm going to be touching on Bible verses that I thought relate to those things that we experience in everyday life. So the my topic, I've given it the topic, in His image, God made us. You may not, but I'm sure you may not find the connection, but there is a connection, and I'm sure you'll find the connection of the message that I'm going to give with what's right. I'm trying to do something here. I give you the message. I'm trying to record my message. It's not working properly. Just forgive me for that. I should have. Right. So, in His image, God made us. If we read Genesis 1 verse 27, so Genesis 1 verse 27. Sorry about that. Genesis 1 verse 27. Because so God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. This is talking about God creating us in His own image. But if we look at what people are like, some are tall, some are short, some are fat, some are white, some are black, some are albino, but God cannot be like all of that. There must be something that the image part of that verse refers to. And I'm sure I'm going to be touching on those things as we go through. My narrative is going to be based on what I've observed in engineering, where structures and machines are made up of structures, machines, and products are made up of components or parts that are called service items. These service items, their quality determines the lifespan of a product, or their useful life of the individual service components. Let's go to Mark 4, maybe to start making sense what I'm going to be touching on as I talk about God creating us in His own image. What we can do with the brains that He has given us, and relate it to what the Bible teaches us about what God expects of us. Mark 4 from verse 1. Mark 4 from verse 1. Like I said, I want us to read between the lines. These are issues that we are always reading about and maybe just going through them and knowing them as familiar parables. I know about this parable, but let's relate it to what I'm talking about. Like right now, I've just talked about when machines and structures and products are made. There are parts that are put into those products. Let's talk about, let's relate it to what the Bible says. Again, Jesus began, that's verse 1 of Mark 4. Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and set in it on the lake, while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching he said, "Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on the rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But the sun came up, and the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still others fell on the good soil. It came up, grew and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times." Then Jesus said, Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." I think that's a calling for us to read between the lines, get a meaning behind these things. Like there I just talked about how machines are made up of components that are service items, or components that, like the seed that fell on rocky ground, God was creating, say, a house of believers. But as he threw the seed, some of it fell on what I can relate in engineering to quality parts, the hearts that really can grasp what God is saying, get the truth behind what is being said or what God is really trying to give us to understand. We get the truth behind it if we are quality parts. The quality, like I said, the quality of the service components determines their useful life. If we go to John 15 is also a very familiar Bible verse. We can also use it to relate to how God created us in his image. The quality of the service parts determine the useful life of that machine or structure or engine or anything like that has been made by those people that were made in the image of God. I am the true vine, verse 1 of chapter 15, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. As we go down, we may have to refer back to this verse, because it's going to also apply to something that I'm going to say just below. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that bears fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Just like an engineer makes up a machine or builds an engine or whatever it is, a structure, he can be satisfied with what he will have done, just like Jesus is satisfied with the word that he has given us, and is satisfied that we are clean because of that word. So because of our effort as we produce whatever we produce, we will be satisfied that it is good or it's of good quality. That's another area where we are created in the image of God. When a part fails, it is removed and replaced. Just like you are running, say, something that is common is like motor vehicles, where when you have a faulty tire, a faulty wheel bearing, you have to take it out and replace it. Why are we doing that? We are doing it because it's no longer useful. It has its useful life has come to an end, and it has to be replaced. Let's go to Matthew 22, verses 1 to 10. I hope I'm not really speaking in parables or riddles. I hope it's really making the sense that I found in it, because I found that there are messages that are really behind each and every passage that's in the Bible. Matthew 22, verses 1 to 10 tells us about Jesus speaking to them again in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a king. I've just said there, when a part fails, it is removed and replaced. And then I want us to go to Matthew 22, verses 1 to 10, and then see what God is still doing. Like I said the last time, God is still working. Like Jesus Christ says, my Father is working and I work too. So God is still working with us, having created us. He's still working with us, just as we are still working with developments and things that we, innovations and stuff like that. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son, banquet or banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet. Those are the parts that are intended for use in the building of a machine. The guests that were invited, that God intentionally invited. Then tell those who, that's the second part of the second sentence in verse 4. Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. So you are now looking at whatever you've produced, you want to use it, and you are expecting that every component that you have put into it will really give you the utility that you desire out of that machine or engine or whatever it is. But they paid no attention and went off. Just like we've just read John 15, every branch that bears no fruit is taken out. And I said here, when a part fails, it is removed and replaced. But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized the servants, mistreated them, and killed them. Many times we come to a point where we are frustrated with the result of what we have invested our effort in. Say what is the making of a machine or the building of an engine or whatever product you are trying to make, and it doesn't come out with the correct quality that you want, and you get frustrated. This may be a result of having used parts that are not really going to be good to or for use building up that machine. So these people that had been invited that ended up beating up the servants that had been sent to remind them of the invitation are just as good as what we experience in life when we don't get what we want out of our efforts. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. Now we are talking about the part that I said about replacing parts that fail. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, the part that talks about replacing, we are created in the image of God, and every effort that we make is something that was ingrained in us by God to be what it is that can be called. We are made in the image of God. And this is, I've given this heading position. It's a part one, because I'm going to continue to talk about this until I bring out the message that I really want us to get. But I hope as we go along, we are getting the message. But the king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed them. Then he said to his servants, now we are replacing those parts and that have been pruned off in John 15. The wedding banquet is ready, but those I have invited did not deserve to come. We are throwing away those parts, poor quality parts. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find. Find any other quality. So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find. Now we are trying everything to see if you can get it running. The bad as well as the good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. Now, you've gone through a point where you are frustrated with what you have produced and you need to change parts. And you have changed those parts. Remember, you are picking up on the bad as well as the good. And then, having picked up on the bad as well as the good, you will definitely come to a point where you still have to make further decisions to say, well, this is bad, I don't want to continue with this. I would rather use something better. Verse 11, I'm sure we've read up to verse 10. So the servants went out into the streets, that's verse 10. Verse 11, having replaced those parts with the good as well as the bad, you want to try and see how you can get your stuff running, but you still have to make further decisions. Verse 11 says, but when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. Wearing wedding clothes is something like, to God, before God, it simply means someone who, clothes refer to deeds. So wedding clothes there are like fitting deeds, or deeds that make you worthy to be present at the wedding. So this one was found not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, how did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend? The man was speechless. Just like if you have used a part to try and get your machine going and it's not working, you look at it, it's just not working. He was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, tie him hand and foot and throw him outside. You still replace further. You still want to get it right, so you remove some of what you have chosen and you continue to try and make right what you have made in the first place. These replacements are sold in shops specializing in availing them. John 17 verse 20 talks about Jesus Christ mentioning the fact that as he was praying, he was not praying only for the disciples that were present, but also for others that were not of that fold. There, I'm just trying to bring out a point that God is still working. God is working at His creation, but the creation that God made was made, especially the humans were made. In fact, only the humans were made in His image. But why did He make us in His image? We do these things, we produce what we need to use as we live our lives. Just as God made us to use us for something. Like Paul says, a potter can make pots for common use and pots for special use. So there is a reason why God created us in His image, so that as we also make what we need to use, we can relate to what He wants with us. What is He? Why is it that He even created us? Remember, like I said, when we started off in this sermon, I talked about let's read behind, between the letters that we can see in the Bible. Let's always, as we read the Bible, let's always find a meaning behind what we are reading means or is trying to convey to us. What message is it giving us? Is it just a story? Are we just reading about a branch being cut off a vine and thrown away? Or when we go to work, is it just about us experiencing life just as life? Or are we to learn as we experience life? God expects us to do this. God expects us to not do this. Is there anything that we are finding meaning of from what we see every day, so that at least we stay in the fold, we stay within what God wants us to really be? At times, service technicians may decide to keep the machine running with known defects. You may have a machine running, you know my laptop or my engine is leaking, there's an oil leak, but I'm just going to continue to use it until an opportune time when I can repair that engine or that machine, or repair that problem. But normally, if technicians decide to keep using a machine with its defects, they will be preparing for a future overhaul of that machine. Let's go to Matthew 13, verse 24. Matthew 13, verse 24. God created us in His image so that we are always mindful of what we are doing, the things that we work around, the things that we use, whatever we are doing, we should always find a meaning to say, well, God also says something very close to this in His Word. That's Matthew 13, verse 24. I've said there that at times service technicians can just decide to say, well, I'll keep using this machine with its wobbling shaft, or with its noisy bearing, or with the oil leak, or whatever it is that's defective on it. They may decide to say, I'll just keep using it until a time comes when I can overhaul it. Verse 24 of Matthew 13. Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. Just like when you are happy to say I've produced what I have produced, be it a machine, an engine, or just a product for use in daily life, you are happy with it, then you start seeing faults. Say, but this machine or this thing has this kind of fault, what's happening? What has happened? The owner's servants came to him and said, that's verse 27, said, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from? An enemy did this, he replied. The servant asked him, do you want us to go and pull them up? No, he answered, because while you are pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn. He told them another parable. We are not going to go there. We are going to jump on to verse 36. Verse 36. 30, verse 36. Just to get the meaning of that parable. Then he left the crowd and went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field. He answered, the one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. I'm just trying to bring out the fact that Jesus would speak in parables relating to what people experience every day, but what people know. And then you would use those things to bring out information or a message about the kingdom of God. The fruit is the world, and the good seed stands for the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. As we live, doing whatever we do, especially in production, like I said, I'm going to be talking about engineering, the experiences that I've had. Like I'll just give another example. Engine kana machine usina ma settings are correct or the wrong timing, it won't start. So that is another example of, like, tomorrow we are going to be observing the feast of Pentecost. God invited us, he called us, he got us to understand these things. We are timed. We know tomorrow is the day of Pentecost. Why are we observing these feasts? To please God, to learn his ways, to understand what he has in his plans for us. And as we observe the feast of Pentecost, we learn that it's talking about us being the first fruits before God, the first few people who were part of the church when the church was formed, just after Jesus Christ's ascension. So, just as an example, motikari yakarasa timing haimuke, mushini wakarasa ma-settings haushandi, and we are timed. We know these are the times for these lessons, they mean this. just an example of what we get through reading the Bible and getting the message that is between the lines. I hope that is very clear what I just said. I hope it's something that really makes sense as we make progress with the last few things that I'm going to say in this part. Having made products or even machines or stuff like that, I'll talk about a handset, a telephone handset, which was used back in it must have been Second World War. One of the magazines has that picture. It was red in color, and it was put in the museum simply because it was the handset that the general or whoever it was used to receive the message that something had to be done. And it was through that same handset that he gave the go-ahead to start war. It was put in a museum simply because of that. Some things are auctioned, like people can buy Masoka June and Michael Jackson per auction for crazy amounts of money. Why? It's because people are like a connection in our users. So as we live our lives, we really have to be useful. Like John 15 says, we have to be fruitful. We have to be useful before God. We have to produce fruit. We have to really be what God intended us to be, so that we will be like those items that are auctioned for funny amounts of money, or those items that are put into auctions because they are known to have been used for something famous. So God created us in His image. The lives that we live, what we do in life, the things that we follow, the things that we dream of, what we are doing, it's all going just after the way God created us and the intention that He wants to use us for. Same way we want to have utility with the things that we make, God also wants us to have to be useful in His kingdom to come, not just in this life. We can be useful in this life, being good to other people, showing love and everything like that, but those are the things for which God will thank us for, to say you've been faithful with a little, enter into my kingdom. So He created us in His image so that we can be useful in the future or in the life tomorrow. This is part one. Why did I call it part one? As I prepared it, I noticed that there are quite a number of messages that can sprout from the same heading. So I need to continue with this the next time that we meet, or the next time that I have an opportunity of presenting